All right, welcome back. It's the second segment of Wake Up Sierra Leone here on Africa Young Voices, Media Empire, AYV. Now, the Inspector General of the Sierra Leone Police, Ambrose Michael Suvula, and team are currently engaging police officers across the country on the new proposed ranking structure for the Sierra Leone Police. According to the IGP Suvula, the proposed ranking structure will ensure government salary harmonization for the Sierra Leone Police and annual promotion of personnel. This, he noted, the ranks to be introduced are Corporal, Chief Inspector, Sergeant Major, Deputy Superintendent of Police, Assistant Commissioner and Commissioner. So this morning, to discuss this move, we have been joined by Superintendent Brahima Kamara, Head of Media Sierra Leone Police, and Good Governance campaigner Abdul Fatoma, Chief Executive, Campaign for Human Rights and Development International Chadri. Good morning, gentlemen. Thank you very much for joining us.
Good morning.
We'll start with you, Superintendent Brahima. Let's talk about the announcement by the Inspector General of Police and how the police force in general in the country, the personnel, have interpreted this message he sent across about the promotion.
Yeah, well, honestly, it's always good for somebody to progress. If you find yourself within a service, it's good for you to progress. If you are stagnant or you just stay in one place, I mean, you become demotivated to do the job. So when it came out from the Police Council to the Ministry of Internal Affairs that there are going to be more ranks within the police so that we have a kind of level playing field. Because what used to happen, the Sierra Leone Police Force itself was established in 1894. And when it was established in 1894, at some point it was called the Civilian Police, at some other point it was called the Frontier Police. But in 1964, when we had the Police Act, they came out with the name the Sierra Leone Police, and then these ranks were created. But during the restructuring between 1999 and 2003, when we had Kitibidu as Inspector General of Police, there was this argument that some of the ranks were overlapping in terms of functions. And then there was like what we call duplicity of roles. In other words, like the corporal and the sergeant, the argument was that they were performing the same roles, so there was need for us to knock off one of them. And that the sub-inspector, the inspector, and the chief inspector, the roles they were played, those roles were overlapping, and then there was need to knock off the sub-inspector and the chief inspector. And then for the ASP and the DSP, it was the same argument they proffered, that the ASP and the DSP, they were doing the same job, and then there was need to knock off one, and then DSP was knocked off, that is Deputy Superintendent. And then much later, when Brahima Chakama came, there was also the argument that the Assistant Commissioner, the Senior Assistant Commissioner, the Deputy Commissioner, and the Commissioner were more or less playing the same roles. So they knocked off all four of them, and then they created the rank called Assistant Inspector General. But at the time, we thought it was good. But honestly, over a period of time, it brought in what we call stagnation. You know, we have young officers, especially we came up with a policy known as accelerated promotion for women. And they were taken from the university, they were brought in, and within a period of 7 and 10 years, they are already there. And then if you say you drop them down to AIG, it means they will have to serve as AIG for something like 20 years. And they become bored, serving in one rank for 20 years. Because the ranks were reduced from 19 to something like 7. So which means if promotions are even done on a yearly basis, within 8 years, you are AIG. And if you are within 8 years, you are AIG, or within 10 years or 12 years, you are AIG, and then you are supposed to serve up to 60 years, and then you are now within the age range of 35 and 40, which means you can be AIG for 15 years, and then you are still hoping to be promoted to DIG, which is just for a single individual. Who is going to be that individual? So that one created a lot of problem over the years, because some people even retired without even reaching that AIG. They spend something like 15 years as a chief superintendent, because you are hoping for somebody to retire before you promote. But the guys who were there, these were young people. So
the explanation you're giving now, the justification, is that in line with the entire police force? I ask because one would wonder, are there also police officers who disagree with this?
people could always disagree to agree. I mean, that's the situation. So but these ranks were in existence.
So this means that there are police officers who disagree with this?
Expectedly. So there are some people who might disagree, but they might not even come out. But the fact remains, we are looking at the greater good of the institution. The greater good. We are within the service, we know what is happening, and then this is we're looking for the greater good. And besides, you spoke about harmonization. If you look at the government salary structure, I mean, it runs up to grade 17.
I was
and we were only operating on grade.
On what grounds do they disagree? What angle are they coming from?
I just want to add to that, Phoebe. The suspended director of professional standards, AIG Brian Majah, according to interviews on the media, says he suspended and he had an issue with the IG and the deputy IG because he disagrees with the system or the processes of these new promotions. Is that the case?
He was not talking about new promotions, from what I heard. He was talking about people not being promoted. I mean, I don't know why he was disagreeing. Because people have to be promoted. And if you say people should not be promoted...
He says the process. He says
what's the process? If you go now to police headquarters, they are interviewing people for promotions. The Public Service Commission interviewed people for promotions. So it is all over. So the processes are being followed.
So Phoebe is asking about disagreements. At that higher level, there is that level of disagreement. According to him, he's been quoted in newspapers. He was interviewed on different media stations. There is that level of disagreement at the director level, at the higher level of the police. Phoebe was asking about what the reaction of police officers generally with this that you want to do.
Almost everybody accepted this because they know the problem.
Almost, but there are those who disagree. And what's the angle? What angle are they coming from? What do they disagree with? Particularly, what are they saying?
Nobody has come up to tell me that they are disagreeing, but I'm just assuming that somebody must disagree.
But you're aware of the suspended director?
I'm aware.
You're aware of his disagreements? You're aware of his disagreements as well?
With regards to?
What we're talking about, the ranks and
it's far different from what we are talking about. We are talking about the rank structure.
Yes, that is what I'm saying. He's saying he disagrees with there's some semblance according to his interviews and quotes.
I'm not seeing the semblance, my brother. I'm not seeing it. Honestly, I'm within the service. I know what is happening. There is no semblance.
But you're aware that he disagrees with the process, or he said he disagrees with the process?
Which process is he disagreeing with? That's what I want to know.
The process of what with the promotion, the new ranks.
The new ranks were only introduced yesterday. And they were only introduced yesterday. I mean, and they came from police council.
So what he's saying is not right, right?
I don't know what he said. Maybe if he's there, maybe we can argue about it, but I don't know what he said.
No, I'm quoting him directly, what he said in media.
Sometimes we always find some difficulties, but the fact is, this is a process. And this process has to move on.
So without these disagreements, the process is moving on?
I'm not talking about the person you are referring to. This is a process. It's a decision taken at the highest level, at police council, and it was approved, and we have to move on. We have to make sure that people are promoted on a yearly basis. Okay. You know, the last time we had promotion was in 2017. And now we are in 2021. You cannot promote people because there are no vacancies. So this is why you have to bring in those ranks. The white guys who brought those ranks, they were not fools. Look at the military. They do promotions almost every year because they maintain their ranks. The whole of West Africa or the whole of Africa. It was only the Salon police that decided to remove. How could you move from 17 to 9? And then you keep somebody in one rank for 20 years and you think that person is going to be motivated. No, there is no way he's going to be motivated. Okay. So this is why the ranks were there. So over a period of time, you acquire the required experience. You cannot become IG and then you are Inspector General of Police and then you cannot take decision at the highest level because you haven't gone through the process itself by acquiring the required experience. When you move from constable to corporal and corporal to sergeant, sergeant to sergeant major, sub-inspector, inspector, chief inspector, ASP, DSP, superintendent, you go through the ranks. Even if you spend 2 years, my brother, you must acquire the required experience when you become a strategic leader.
Abdul Fatoma, I see you watching carefully. You look at him carefully. What do you make of all this situation now? Talking about annual promotion. That's like in every 12 months. And with all his submission, what's your opinion of what's going on?
One thing that is clear, I think they're now getting a clear directive as to how exactly the Sierra Leone police should work with, one of the oldest acts in this country in this modern day, the 1964 Police Act that, complemented all other, legislation, like he talked about the establishment of the police force. And these were rank that was inexistent. The commissioner and deputy commissioners. If you go to the section 6 and section 7 of that act, they speak directly to that. So my own concern here, if we are now going to that very act to ensure the provisions of those old established titles in the police force, we want to bring them. I'm afraid that there are certain provisions still lying in that law that are not good for policing.
So you're saying if we're using the law?
Yeah, I mean, if we're going back to actually, I mean, it's still in existence. We still use that law. But they use policy to abandon the provisions in that law. And there was no amendment to that act, I believe so, right? So it was just, they use a policy, a reform structure policies. And that is what the SLP has been doing. They have created several policies than actually going back to the 1964 Police Act for amendment or neither repeal. So that very act, it's problematic. It has a lot of trouble. I mean, that's the very act saying that the commissioner of police, he can engage in duties with a written permission from the minister. That's the Minister of Internal Affairs. And the 1991 Constitution also, silence another great part of that very act, the section 115 to 118 in the constitutions, the establishment, of the police council, as per the 1991 Constitution, bringing in the vice president. But that act, it was not the vice president as being the chair or the president. It was the minister in charge of police.
Let me read a statement from the Ministry of Internal Affairs.
Okay.
It says the objective for introducing the new ranking structure it will ensure proper succession planning within the Sierra Leone Police Force, capacitation of the police force to manage the span of control and align the chain of command, enhancing command and control as well. Identification of gaps, the Human Resource Directorate can easily scan the organization. The proposed ranking structure will provide for gradual acquisition of knowledge and expertise over time, which will boost our personnel professionalism. I specifically want to ask, do you think or believe that we've been talking a lot about police professionalism? These new ranks, will they help the police with professionalism, leadership structure, command and control? Someone taking responsibility as well. No, we're not going to expect that.
Why? The reason being that if we don't amend the 1964 Police Act, I mean, it's not going to amend. It's still a law. And that's the basis that the Sierra Leone police was established, we can say, as per that law. And it's based on that they operate. If you, for example, you go to section 12 to 14, that provide the recruitment of police constable, for initial period of 6 months. And mind you, the dangerous side of that, they should be on probation for 3 years. On probation, that act provides that. And then that act also gives a direct interference of the minister, who is a politician, right, to have a direct saying on police disciplinary actions and the administrative of the police force. That very act makes provision for the minister. So even though now we have a twin political approach on the police force, we have the Constitution 115 to 158 that brings in the vice president, and
chairman of the police council.
And the minister, and then we have the act that also gives power to the minister to give clearance to the police commissioner to engage in all the duties. So that take away the independency of that force. And like I was saying before you asked your question, before the 1991 Constitution, the 1964 Act, the establishment of the police council, you were having the mayor, paramount chiefs, you know, and other representatives with the minister. You know, but then I think when we remove local governance in our, you know, democratic system by then, when we go, when we enter into the 1968 Republican Constitution, so local governance was knocked off. So maybe that's the reason why the 1991 Constitution and the police council, they removed the mayor and the paramount chief, you know, to be at that council. So the fact that we still have this act, that even, you know, saying that if police officers want to engage in business, they should get clearance from the IG, yeah, or the police commissioner. So security people don't need to engage in business. If you go to police barracks and other places, you can see police officers, you know, engage in businesses. And probably if you ask Bravo Sovla, the IG now, you know, if you ask him if he has granted some of those police officers clearance to engage in those businesses, I mean, he might say no.
Let's bring Media One into the discussion. You've heard from him, and I just read from the Ministry of Internal their press release about professionalism. Specifically, I want to ask, how will this ensure professionalism within the force?
It's going to, I have to call them accountability for actions taken. Because we are now creating the layers. You know, there were gaps. We made reference to those gaps. Those are the gaps we are now filling. You know, initially somebody will come from the training school, and within a period of 3 years, maybe he's already a sergeant. And he might not have even grasped the job, the rudiment of policing itself, and he's already a sergeant. And when you are a sergeant, you are a frontline manager, you now become a manager. You are no longer doing the job, but the job is going to be done through you. And so, having brought in somebody in between, so within that period, you now know what you have to acquire in terms of policing before you become sergeant. And when you are sergeant, you know what to do and what not to do. You know, you now know if I do this, I have to account for it. You know, it's like when it comes to the use of force, normally we go by the acronym PLAN. We talk about the proportionality, legality, but there is this aspect of this accountability. You account for your actions. So when you have all the layers, say for example, within the senior cadre, you now have the assistant commissioner. He has a specific role to play. He has to take orders from the commissioner of police. You understand? And then the commissioner of police has to take orders from the assistant inspector general. But what was happening is the AIG, and then we have the chief superintendent. There is nobody in between, I mean, to have vetted the information or maybe the orders coming from the AIG to even determine whether it is good or not good. And then somebody will just go and apply it. And like I told you, because the ranks were not too many, somebody could become chief superintendent even within 6, 7, or 8 years. He might not have got that experience. But if you go through the ranks, just like the school system. The school system. If you go through the primary education, you go through the JSS level and then you go through the SS level, no matter how weak you are, I mean, there are things you must grab at those particular levels.
Is this an initiative of the Inspector General of Police? Is this something that came from him and he says, this is what I want to achieve?
He's the strategic head of the SLP, and so he has to think outside the box. And then it has to come from him. And then he has to take it to police council after discussions with management. This thing could have come into effect long ago. This one was introduced as far back as 2019. We did the presentation. In fact, it was, I will say it, I was given the task by the IGP.
It seems you're passionate about it.
Very, very
You've
passionate.
been leading it.
Well, I came into the police when I was young, as 18 years, my brother. So this is, I know policing. I've been around policing for a very long period of time. So I know, I met these ones. These ranks they are now introduced, I met them. I went through them before Kid Bidu came. and then they've come again. So I know everything about it.
So what will happen with the ranks presently?
They are still there. It's only that we have created more ranks. And then, like sergeant is still there. But now you cannot move from constable to sergeant. You move from constable to corporal. Like the military, they move from private to lance corporal. For them, in fact, you have to go lance corporal before you go to corporal and then sergeant. So when you are sergeant, you are out there in the field as a military man. My brother, you know what to do and what not to do. But you just take it from constable, within 3 years you are sergeant, and then you are controlling people. Sometimes even the constables, you think they are very brilliant and they are very smart. And if you are sergeant, you are not smart enough, they can outsmart you. So this is why, having acquired the experience, acquired the police knowledge over a period of time. My brother, if you are sergeant, you know what to do. And if you are an inspector, you know what to do. And even if you are IGP, you now know how to take care of a man.
Superintendent Brima, this brings us to what's the laid down criteria for promotion within the force?
We have to advertise. That is what we normally do. The police is there. We advertise that we now have vacancies. But honestly, promotion should be like for you moving from constable to sergeant, you will have spent something like 5 years, 6 years as a constable. Understand? For those who are not graduates. For those who are graduates, they can even be promoted maybe immediately after training school. You just have to encourage them. People have spent some time acquiring education. Understand? But we have the policy that provides for the promotions to be advertised, and then they set the criteria, and then people apply. And when they apply, we now do the shortlisting, and then they invite them for interviews.
What about in the case of police officers who, while during practice, of course, as active officers, they acquire some university qualification that they did not have before joining the police force? In such cases, is there an eligibility for promotion, even when there's no general promotion going on? Is there an eligibility to apply for promotion upon
I like the word, you are eligible for promotion. But if there are no promotions, you have to wait. And when promotions are available, you cannot be promoted. Like in 2018, when we had the general promotion in 2017, I think it was December 19, 2017, understand? And then in 2018, we promoted 484 officers. Most of them were coming from the universities. They were enlisted in 2017. And then we had some who were within the service. They went to universities, they acquired their degrees, and then they were all promoted together with those guys. Some were sergeants and they were promoted to inspectors. Some were constables, they were promoted to inspectors. Because when you are a graduate, your scale, salary scale is already, you find yourself within the grade 7. And grade 7 is for inspectors.
Okay.
So sometimes keeping you as constable, it doesn't worth it because you're already enjoying the benefit of
So Fatoma was talking, go ahead.
Just before that, once the promotion takes place, what's the package? What does the promotion come with? It
comes with economic benefits because you're moving from one particular grade to another grade.
Just and
that? Well, it also comes with responsibilities. Because
is there also a training session for the training before a promotion to say enhanced training before you get to be promoted?
No, we do our own training after you are promoted. Because we promote you now, you go to a new rank, and then we give you the training so that you know how to operate within that new rank. We have development courses at a certain level, and then we also have management courses at a certain level, and then we have strategic leadership courses for the likes of assistant commissioners up to the IGP. Unfortunately, I'm just benefiting from that one. I just came from Nigeria, having gone through the strategic leadership course.
Congratulations.
So I'm not hopeful.
I'm
hopeful.
I asked this for a reason. It was leading me to this. So we were talking about how this leads to professionalism within the police force. So this was deliberate to lead up to this, to properly understand, first of all, the eligibility, who gets to be promoted. Is it random selection? Is it the IG who looks and says, okay, I think Superintendent Brima should be promoted, or like getting that and understanding the package that comes with it, more so with training, because minus interference from politicians, there are other instances where police officers don't carry themselves with utmost professionalism And that comes from corruption cases as well, where there are allegations that even, for example, traffic police officers who are out there collecting bribes, they do this in collaboration with their bosses. Because when they get back, again, based on allegation, when they get back, they come to give an account of what they received so far, and they go into the percentage sharing. So this leads to professionalism. How does this really impact the professionalism of the police officers?
This one I'm not even aware of it. I'm not aware.
Well, now you're aware. Luckily, there's always a first time to hear something.
I've never witnessed it.
Well, now
and there is no system within the police where they say, you go out there, go pick money or go collect money from people, and then you come back to the office and then we share. It has never happened. I have never seen it. I have never seen it because, you know, professionalism, I always say professionalism, there is the objective aspect of it, and there is also the subjective aspect of it. Honestly.
AIG, I was going to ask you about, Fatoma was talking about, you know, political interference and depoliticizing the old police, especially when the vice president still sits as chairman of the council and the minister is still part of it. The question is, why not push if there needs to be some reform for some level of independence where the law can be reviewed, it can be looked at how the police can be independent, you do your own work devoid of political interference. Especially when as well politicians can influence who is to be promoted.
No, the question of, let me address this last one before. The question of politicians' influence in who should be promoted, I don't think that is the case. You know, sometimes we just assume, honestly, we just think because there is provision, like he was alluding to Section 155 to Section 158 of the Constitution, Act number 6 of 1991, they specifically refer to the police, the appointment of the IGP, and the police council, the vice president, and discipline, and so on and so forth, 155 to 158 of 1991 Constitution. You understand? But the fact remains, if you're talking about politicization, that one started as far back as 1978.
How do we stop it?
I'm coming. Sometimes you lay the foundation, you lay the basis before you. As far back as 1978, when we had this one-party system of government. And you know, that's, when you look at that constitution, there is provision for 7 people by then for the executive president to select them to be members of parliament with cabinet status.
Okay.
And then the commissioner of police then, who was the head of the institution.
ASP, we'll have to, we will have to hold you there quickly.
This is still Wake Up Sierra Leone here on AYV television. We're trying to round up now, and as we do so, we'll quickly read through your messages on our Facebook page. The first message here I'd read, Junisa Jallo says, we are waiting to see and witness these promotions to be given to deserving officers. We hope it will not be based on tribes, regions, favoritism, etc.
And Albert Lansana says, in my criminal justice system class, I talk about police officers not being above the law and that police officers ought to support the law and ought to set good examples for all to follow.
Albert Lansana says, as long as you're eligible to go to the next rank, then promote to the next rank. Case in point, I as a sergeant went through to advanced leadership course, and once I was done, submitted my package to be promoted to staff sergeant. Likewise, when I finish senior leadership course, will be promoted to sergeant first class.
Jabati Kamara says, where and when will the forms will be out for application? That's a question for Media One.
Hassan Mansour, okay, I'll skip that question.
I know.
I'll skip that statement.
Usman Prince, let me get this. Usman Prince Suleiman Solomon says, we need police oversight to stop politicians from manipulating the process.
Junisa Jallo again says, these are the problems with our authorities. How can you come up with a proposal without considering the views and opinions of others within the force? You are there saying it's coming from the highest orders.
Jibril Amara says, ASP, can you please tell us why Is Brahma Jab being investigated? That's the question.
Albert Lansana says the minister shouldn't have a say in regards to disciplining police officers. Everything should boil down from the top and way down. Chain of command, span of control, unit of command are the key to police professionalism. The
final one I'll take is from Victor Akomengot. He says, in the past, there were 2 levels of entry into the police, just like the army. Officer training and ordinary police officer training. Will this be reintroduced under the new ranking system?
Janissa Jallo again, very active here this morning on our page. It says, those ranks they have set up must have been dictated by the white folks. It's a shame because we cannot set standards for ourselves.
Yes, let's go to Media One to respond to some of the questions.
Yeah, to me the questions are very fair, and some are just concerns being raised. With regards to the promotions, I want to assure everybody that they are going to be very fair, open and transparent. If you go anywhere now, you go to Eastern Police, you go to Central, people are being interviewed for promotions. That shows the transparent nature of it. I mean, with regards to application forms, we do not have to print application forms for people who want to apply for promotions. We have our own communication system. What we do, we have what we call force orders. We also have what we call memos. We send out the memos, and then you now see the memo, and then you apply. So we are not sending out forms like somebody is saying. The police oversight needed. I mean, the idea. This is why we have the IPCB, we have the Ombudsman, we have the Anti-Corruption. These are all oversight bodies. Human Rights Commission, and they are there to checkmate the excesses of the police. And somebody was asking why is Brahmaja investigated. And the fact that we've even moved that stage. We are now at the stage of disciplinary hearing. It's already been investigated. We are looking at issues of, they're all allegations, issues of insubordination. We are looking at conduct prejudicial to good order and discipline. These are all provisions you can find in the police discipline regulations of 2001. That's a constitutional instrument. If you read section 155 up to 1558, like I was saying, in the Act number 6 of 1991, it is very clear that police council, they have the right to draw up regulations to run the police force. And those regulations were drawn up in 2001, and they have been in operations since 2001. So we are being guided by those ones. So it's investigated on the basis of having, well, we call it infractions. So infractions of the provisions of that.
Is it true that he wanted to hit the Deputy Inspector General of Police?
That is going. It's like I'm going into the evidence, and I'm asking if I should not be going to the evidence. If I say yes, then I'm going to the evidence.
But is that allegation on the table as well? Is that matter being investigated?
It's part of the allegations. But if I say yes now, it's like I'm going to the evidence. That's part of the investigation. But we've done, like I said, we've done with the investigation.
Okay. Finally, someone asked about the entry. Asked about the final question I get.
Yeah, somebody was asking about whether we're still going to have the direct entry, or we're going to have the entry through cadets. I mean, that's the possibility. If you look at the new ranks, there is one there referred to as cadet assistant superintendent. So which means there is consideration for that one. It could not be now, but there is consideration. It used to be there, and we've reintroduced it, which means in future, like the military are doing, we take you as second lieutenant, one PIP, one button. We're also going to be doing it in future.
Okay. Finally, Abdul Fatoma, this issue of ranking and promotions, we see it has led to some issues. Someone is being investigated now for alleged insubordination and issues around that, and also professionalism of the police. And you've been talking about the review of the law, you know, how will we achieve all of this?
We can only achieve it if the Sierra Leone Police Force and the Minister of Internal Affairs develop the appetite to do the actual reform that the police need. The reforms that we have been having is not the real dire need of the police force. is actually looking back at the 1964 Act and try to bring it up to modern policing, so that Sierra Leone can match with their counterpart in Nigeria, where he's just
How
from.
difficult could that be?
I
to
mean,
review,
it has been difficult. In 2019, we engaged the former minister, Suluku, and we started the process. Our organization attended the police management board meeting twice, and by then Richard Moigbe was there. He was having the appetite for us to move things, but I mean, the sad thing was that the UN, through UNDP, worked with the Law Reform Commission, and they developed a concept, a roadmap as to how such work should have been done. And the sad thing, the police was not having that document. They said that it's an old document and they don't have it. We have to trace the document from a consultant in Sudan, and that consultant refer us to New York, and we were able to get the roadmap of that document. And we brought that again to the police management board, and they adopted. We signed an MOU for us to continue. So they changed Suluku, and then we met with Pananoa, and we talked with Pananoa, and he tried to develop some appetite, and he referred us to, you know, the current IG. But since then, between the two, I mean, there is no appetite, you know, to actually look into the welfare. And let me just say the interference that even Texas were saying. Section 58 to 59, you know, and provide that the minister make rules, standing orders in relation to numbers of administrative, disciplinary, procedural matters, and also train and discipline of police force.
So meaning the minister can determine this investigation that is going on now within IGP
The Act gives that power. The Police Act, the 1964
and
Police
Fatoma,
Act.
how do we get to a point as a country where we either forcefully get the attention of the right authorities to amend that act in the shortest possible time? I
mean, the problem is that politicians in this country see civil society as their rivals, and it shouldn't not. I mean, that's not the point. Okay. We are there to fill in the gap. If we have the expertise to help the Sierra Leone police force, to actually help them, I mean, through the law officers, through the law reform, to review the Police Act and bring it to modern day policing, it is good, because, you know, there is a provision also in that act that the bar police officers to join, you know, association or political party without the expression of the IG. You know, or the minister giving
Thank you very much.
All of those things, these are things that
we'll definitely try to find time and bring the minister here. So this is very important to further this discussion. But thank you very much,
You're welcome.
Abdul Fatoma, for your time, and thanks very much, Media One. I'm sure I can call you that. Thanks for your time, and thanks for coming. We're looking forward to the promotion and wishing you luck.
Well, this is what would end today's edition of Wake Up Sierra Leone. Our quote for today says, all leadership must seek feedback, and there is never a bad feedback. What you do with the feedback is what is important. And that's an apt quote that comes from Francis Ben Kaifala, Commissioner, Sierra Leone's Anti-Corruption Commission.
We say thanks to our sponsor, Hotel Commercial Bank, for their support to the program. Continue to stay with AYV throughout the day, as we have other exciting programs coming up on your TV set. Till we meet tomorrow with more interesting topics here on Wake Up Sierra Leone. We have been your presenters. I am Amadullah Mranaba.
And I am Phoebe Swiel. Thank you for your time. Have a lovely day. Cheers.